Dear students, welcome to the Principles of Human Resource Management course. In this video, we will talk about Chapter 7, Performance Management and Appraisal, Lesson 2, Interviewing Candidates. By the end of this video, you are expected to 1. Summarize interviewing candidates. What is an interview? An interview is a procedure designed to obtain information from a person through oral responses to oral inquiries. Basic types of interviews can be classified according to 1. Structure, 2. Content, 3. Administration, 4. Pros and cons. In structured or directive interviews, the employer lists the questions ahead of time. He or she also may even list and score possible answers for appropriateness. Structured interviews are generally best. In such interviews, all interviewers generally ask all applicants the same questions. Partly because of this, the interviews tend to be more consistent, reliable, and valid. Having a standardized list of questions can also help even less talented interviewers conduct better interviews. Standardizing the interviews also enhances job relatedness. In a situational interviews, he asks the candidate what his or her behavior would be in a given situation. For example, ask a supervisory candidate how he or she would act in response to a subordinate coming to work late 3 days in a row. Situational questions start with phrases such as, "Suppose you were faced with the following situation. What would you do?" In behavioral interviews, ask applicants to describe how they reacted to actual situations in the past. Behavioral questions start with phrases like, "Can you think of a time when?" "What did you do?" In a job-related interview, the interviewer asks applicants questions about job-relevant past experiences. The questions here don't revolve around hypothetical or actual situations or scenarios. Instead, the interviewer asks questions such as, "Which courses did you like best in business school?" The aim is to draw conclusions about, say, the candidate's ability to handle the financial aspects of the job in question. In a stress interview, the interviewer seeks to make the applicant uncomfortable with occasionally rude questions. The aim is to supposedly spot sensitive applicants and those with low or high stress tolerance. Puzzle questions are popular. Recruiters like to see how applicants think under pressure. For example, an interviewer at Microsoft asked a tech service applicant this: "Mike and Todd have $21 between them. Mike has $20 more than Todd does. How much money has Mike? And how much money has Todd?" Answer: Mike had $20.50 and Todd has $0.50. How should we conduct the interview? 1. One-on-one. In a one-on-one interview, 2 people meet alone. One interviews the other by seeking oral responses to oral inquiries. Employers tend to schedule these interviews sequentially. 2. Sequential. In a sequential or serial interview, several persons interview the applicant in sequence, one-on-one, and then make their hiring decision. 3. Panel. A panel interview, also known as a board interview, is an interview conducted by a team of interviewers, usually 2 or 3, who together ask each candidate and then combine the ratings of each candidate's answers into a final panel score. 4. Mass. The mass interview. Here, a panel interviews several candidates simultaneously. The panel might pose a problem and then watches to see which candidate takes the lead in formulating an answer. 5. Phone interviews. Employers also conduct interviews via phone. These can actually be more useful than face-to-face interviews for judging one's consciousness, intelligence, and interpersonal skills. Because they needn't worry about appearance or handshakes, each party can focus on answers, and perhaps candidates, somewhat surprised by an unplanned call from the recruiter, give more spontaneous answers. 6. Computer-based job interviews. A computerized selection interview is one in which a job candidate's oral and/or keyed replies are obtained in response to computerized oral, visual, or written questions and/or situations. 7. Web-based video interviews. With phone and tablet video functionalities and Skype, web-based in-person interview use is widespread. About 18% of candidates took such interviews in one recent year. Avoiding errors that can undermine an interview's usefulness. First, structure the interview. Second, know what to ask. Third, impressions, snap judgments. Fourth, not clarifying what the job requires. First, structure the interview. Structured interviews, particularly structured interviews using situational questions, are more valid than unstructured interviews for predicting job performance. They are more valid partly because they are more reliable. For example, the same interviewer administers the interview more consistently from candidate to candidate. Second, know what to ask. Interviews are better at revealing some things than others, so know what to focus on. Third, impressions, snap judgments. Probably the most widespread error is that interviewers tend to jump to conclusions, make snap judgments about candidates during the first few minutes of the interview or even before the interview starts, based on test scores or resume data. Fourth, not clarifying what the job requires. Interviewers who don't have an accurate picture of what the job entails and what sort of candidate is best for it usually make their decisions based on incorrect impressions or stereotypes of what a good applicant is. You should clarify what sorts of traits you're looking for and why before starting the interview. Fifth, the applicant's nonverbal behavior, smiling, avoiding your gaze, and so on, can also have a surprisingly large impact on his or her rating. Interviewers infer your personality from your nonverbal behaviors in the interview. Sixth, clever candidates capitalize on nonverbal behavior and impression management. One study found that some used ingratiation to persuade interviewers to like them. Psychologists call using techniques like ingratiation and self-promotion impression management. Seventh, effect of personal characteristics. Attractiveness, gender, race and comfortability, physical attributes such as applicant's attractiveness, gender, disability, or race also may distort an interviewer's assessments. In the end of this video, you have talked about what is interview, basic types of interviews, interview content, what types of questions to ask, how should we conduct the interview, avoiding errors that can undermine an interview's usefulness.